everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be discussing my July wrap-up and also talk about my August reading plans. So let's go ahead and get started. July was actually kind of a weird month for me. I felt like I didn't get a lot of reading done, but I actually ended up reading 9 books. I actually ended up giving out 2 5-stars, 2 4-stars, and 5 3-star books. And I actually ended up reading 5 horror books, 3 thrillers, and 2 graphic novels. Now I know those numbers don't quite add up, but I will explain at the end. To kickstart the month, I actually joined Jacqueline and a few other booktubers over on her Booktubers and Brews live show, where we discussed the book Suffer the Children. And I actually loved discussing this book with a few of the other ladies just because we have a few different dynamics. Like, some of us are parents, some of us aren't. I ended up giving this book 3 stars. This book involves a bunch of different points of views of parents who are basically suffering because their children have basically died, and then 3 days later they come back to life, and they're kind of like zombie vampires. Like, it's all the children in the world, and they go to such great lengths to help their children, even though it's like unethical in a way. I ended up giving this 3 stars just because I felt like some of the stuff was a little too ridiculous in my opinion. I actually did not really care for many of the characters, so that was another reason why I ended up giving this 3 stars. Next, I ended up reading one of my Book of the Month picks, which is Home Before Dark by Riley Sager. This was a 5-star read for me, and I absolutely loved this book. This one involves a young girl back in the day, and then in the present day when she's an adult. But basically, when she was a child at 5 years old, her and her parents lived in this house for 20 days, and then in the middle of the night, they just left, claiming it was haunted, and her father ended up writing this really famous book about the house and their experience in the house. And this girl, Maggie, has never remembered anything that's happened. She's always thought the book was a lie. Then her father passes away and she inherits the house, so she goes back to get more answers. And one thing that I really loved about this book is that Riley Sager had his chapters split into parts of the book that the father wrote, and then back in the day, and then chapters with Maggie present day where she's going back and reliving. And in those chapters, I would either be like, oh, this house is haunted, oh, this house is not haunted, and flip-flopping basically. And I really loved how I changed my opinion on everything that happened, and I loved all the plot twists at the end, so I would definitely highly recommend that one. The next one is The Truth by Nick Cutter. I ended up giving this one 4 stars. This is a horror book that I was very terrified to read, and I'm not gonna lie, I felt super grossed out. This one is about I think the man's name is Tim, and he is a troop leader for like Boy Scouts, and basically he takes a group of kids out on this remote island where they have no communication with the main inland, and basically they do this like once a year, and they have to, like, you know, live off the land for the weekend. Well, then randomly this very pale skinny man who's constantly hungry just shows up, and then things get really twisted. I don't want to give too much away because I think that's the best way to go into the book, but I would recommend, if you're creeped out by like skin crawling or body horror, definitely avoid this book, because that was one of the things I'm most terrified about, and definitely creeped out. Next, I ended up reading 2 collections of short stories by Stephen King. I ended up reading 4 Past Midnight and also Everything's Eventual. The main reasons why I wanted to read these collections is for 2 particular stories. I wanted to read Secret Window, Secret Garden, just because I love the movie adaptation Secret Window with Johnny Depp. And then I wanted to read 1408, which has also been made into a movie. And I ended up giving 4 Past Midnight 4 stars just because I really liked those stories a little bit more than Everything's Eventual. But I find it crazy how 1408 is only 40 pages long, and they made this huge dramatic movie. And I love both of the movies. 1408 was a little disappointing. I think it's just because it's so short, but I really enjoyed some of the stories. Some of them I didn't, so I feel like short stories are kind of hard to rate, but I ended up giving 4 and 3 stars. Next, I actually ended up reading a NetGalley arc, which was The Wife Who Knew Too Much. And this was by Michelle Campbell. I've read Michelle Campbell's books in the past and have not really been a big fan. Unfortunately, this one just didn't do it for me either. I love how Michelle Campbell has great story ideas, but the execution just always falls flat for me personally. This story involves a woman named Tabitha and a man named Connor. Tabitha and Connor had this like summer fling when she was working at the country club that he was a member of, and basically he ended up breaking her heart, and now years later he's came back into her life. He's married and unhappy. He kind of married this woman Nina for her money, and randomly one night Nina takes her own life, and Tabitha and Connor are like, this is a sign that we're meant to be together. We can finally be together now that I'm not married anymore. And so as Nina kind of like gets closer, she ends up finding a journal from Nina, and basically it says like, if you find this after my death, it was not an accident and Connor's behind everything. So I really enjoyed the premises. I would say this is probably my favorite Michelle Campbell book, but again, it always falls flat for me. So yeah, I know there's a lot of Michelle Campbell fans out there, but if you like her writing, it's a very easy writing style, but if you like her other previous books, definitely check it out. But I probably won't be reading any more from her just because I'm always disappointed at the end. The next book that I read was The Last Flight by Julie Clark, and I ended up giving this one 3 stars as well. This one involves 2 women who meet in an airport. They're both kind of like running from their lives, and at the last minute they decide to switch tickets. Then one of the plane crashes ends up crashing, and so the other woman is kind of stuck with this other woman's life. And I loved the premise of this book. However, the entire time I was reading this book, I was comparing it to like other books I've read. I was getting like Dear Wife by Kimberly Bell vibes, Gone Girl, which I love, but this one just wasn't a good, like, I just didn't like it. I just always compared it to other, and there's a few other, I just can't think of them at the top of my head, but I was always thinking of other books that were very similar to this. So unfortunately, I gave this one 3 stars. There was a good plot twist at the end, but again, it just didn't overpower my whole reading experience. So the last 2 books are actually in my graphic novels. I ended up reading A Quiet Girl in a Noisy World. This one was so relatable and cute. This was another 5-star read for me. I'm not one to say that I'm an extrovert or an introvert, but after reading this book, I can definitely see my inner introverted traits that I have, and I really appreciated this book because it's so cute, so relatable. I definitely recommend this one for anyone. The last book I want to talk about is a horror graphic novel, so that's why the numbers didn't really quite add up. But this is Through the Woods by Emily Carroll, and I ended up giving this one 3 stars. I really enjoyed all the pictures and everything in here. This is like 5 short stories of like mystery horror books, and I don't know, this book was really hard to rate because I liked the stories. However, the endings always had like an open-ended, and I normally like that, but for these, like, I just feel like, I guess because you're visually seeing it, like, I kind of want to know the answers. So that's why I ended up rating it 3 stars. Now to get into my August reading plans. So I am actually part of Jacqueline's book club on Facebook, which is We Be Bookin'. I'll link the description to the club down in the description if you're interested in joining. But for the month of August, we actually split up into teams and we are doing Bookish Jeopardy, and I am so excited. I feel like I have such an awesome team. But we are actually doing Bookish Jeopardy, and we've kind of have to pick our prompts. We don't know what they are until we finalize our selections, and they will tell us a prompt. Like, for example, like if it's covers, read a cover that's blue or something. So you have to pick a book that's blue. So fair enough, but there are some different like categories that could be a little more tricky. So I'm not going to give mine away just in case there's a few other book club members, because I'm not going to tell you what they are. But I am currently reading The Half Sister by Sandy Jones. This one involves 2 girls who are sisters, and they randomly find out that they may have like a half sister that their late father was hiding from them. So far it's so good, but I'm waiting for things to pick back up. So after I read that one, I have to wait to see what next book I pick. So I don't really have a TBR, but I figured I can kind of tell you like some books that are on my radar. I like to read Beach Read as well as the other Colleen Hoover book that I've had forever from the library, Too Late. I also picked up The Girl from Widow Hills recently, so I'd like to try to get to this one. I've never read a Megan Miranda book before. I also have He Started It by Samantha Downing. I ended up starting this one, but I had to put it down because of Jeopardy starting. And then I also had this Mary Kubica book, The Other Misses. It's been on my shelf forever. I'd like to get to this one at some point. So, all right, guys, that is my wrap up / August plans. Sorry, I can't really give you much of a TBR, but I figured it would just be better just to combine the two videos together. Definitely follow me over on Instagram. It's at readingwithjess_. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel. And as always, I will see you guys in my next video. Bye.